Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Friday, February 14th. So happy Valentine's Day, everybody. That makes this the news for Thursday, February 13th, day 1086 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. Hey, Richard Prexis. Hey, Bobby. Hey, Andy. Hey, Joey the Lips. Hang on, let me grab my water here. Oh, boy. Okay. Hey, Bobby. How you doing, pal? Hey, Pug and Mahone. Germany's in the house. How's everybody doing? Mark Charles, good evening. Hey, Anthony, Tommy, Tom. Hey, PH. Hey, Bro Dog. ¿Cómo estás? Pittsburgh Johnny. One of my all-time favorite comedians, a guy named Steve Hofstetter, works out of Pittsburgh. I'm plugging along, Bobby. Hey, Bip. I got to be up and out early tomorrow. The doctor wants to do some blood tests. I guess he wants to see if I need antibiotics or antivirals. And so he needs to do some blood work to figure that out. So right now I am fasting. You can probably hear my voice is not 100%. So let's get to it. And let's try to get through what has really been a massive 3 days of just the last 24 hours has just been absolutely insane. So let's start out then. I did a bunch of videos about it. We got some great satellite pictures of all those oil depots that have been hit, right? And if you take a look at my page, you'll see today I posted some videos with some in-depth analysis, hey, Tony, of that. Leo, we'll get to that in just a moment. Let me start out by thanking Brendan Hoy, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. Thank you, Brendan. I really appreciate it. We got Brendan Hoy tonight and Bia Citrella tomorrow. And other than that, guys, I have no live sponsors for the rest of February. And I could really use some help with that. The PayPal is in the description. So we got satellite images from Russian oil and gas infrastructure that reveal pretty clearly why these strikes on Russian infrastructure are so important. However, they are not decisive, right? They're not shutting down the Russian war machine. And a great example is the Tula refinery. Hey, Jeff. A great example is the Tula refinery, where the oil depot storage was hit and only one tank burned out of 54. And then you look at the Crystal refinery, right, at Engels Air Force Base, or not refinery, pardon me, the oil depot, the Crystal oil depot at Engels Air Force Base in Saratov. Now that was double tapped. That place burned for 7 days. Only 14 tanks were damaged. 4 were destroyed, another 10 damaged. Out of 44 tanks. The problem that Ukraine has is that the weapons that they've developed that they can use for long-range strikes inside Ukraine are just not the big kind of bombs and missiles that the United States and Russia have. They're not nearly. And so they're not doing the damage that needs to be done to take these out. Now, there were 2 big success stories in those satellite images, right? The Kremeny L microelectronics plant in Bryansk clearly has suffered critical damage. the Novoshatinsk refinery down in Rostom-on-Don. That is out of service, not producing. And that's huge, right? That means that at least 2 of the working oil refineries that Russia depends on are out of commission. And then there's another handful, another half dozen or so, that are functioning at partial capacity. They're not at full capacity. So it remains to be seen how much more damage Ukraine can do with the weapons that they have. Now, everybody, of course, is talking about the phone call yesterday that Putin had with Trump, and the fact that Putin is planning, or Trump is planning to meet face to face with this war criminal, and he lauded him in his Truth Social posts. Yeah, I know, Bertie. It makes me mad too. So Putin and Trump are talking about a meeting in Saudi Arabia, which is just great because that's the home base of Mohammed bin Salman, right? The Saudi crown prince, who is very clearly an acolyte of Putin's and an enemy of the United States. Hey, Flippy. I don't believe Saudi Arabia is a signatory to the ICC, John. Right? So unless some third party country can force his plane down while it's in international airspace, that's not going to happen. Nothing like that is going to happen. So just before we get into Putin and Trump, we saw 140 attack drones come in last night, 137 shot down. It's like a 96% interception rate. Usual good job by the UAF. Now, yesterday, when Putin spoke to Trump, I would remind everybody here that 6 ballistic missiles rocked me out of bed at 4 a.m. the same day that Trump had his call with Putin. And he calls Putin a great man and says he loves the Russian people. So the very day that the UAF shot down 6 ballistic missiles, thwarting the Kremlin's latest efforts at war crimes against Ukraine, Putin and Trump spoke about peace as if such a thing were realistic, as if you could make peace with a guy who has wiped his ass with every peace treaty that he has ever signed. It is a joke. It is sickening, Bobby. It is absolutely sickening. The Europeans are calling it a betrayal, but we'll get to that. The call lasted 90 minutes. Trump on Truth Social said, quote, "It was a lengthy and highly productive call." And they agreed to, quote, "immediately start negotiations to end the Ukraine war." Putin and Trump agreed that the time has come to work together. According to Dmitry Peskov, Putin told Trump that, quote, "long-term settlement was possible." Please, you gotta be kidding me. Peskov went on to say that any settlement would need to address the root causes of the conflict. And there's the problem, right? Because the root causes of the conflict are a bunch of lies that only a sycophant or slave of the Russian Empire could possibly believe. If you need to address the lies you've told as if they are facts, it's a problem. It's going to be a problem for everybody. Now, after his call with Putin, Zelensky says that Trump called him and they had a long and detailed call, quote unquote. Quote, "We discussed many aspects, diplomatic, military, and economic, and President Trump informed me of what Putin told him." Interesting. Now, this comes after numerous worrying comments from administration officials. we saw the confirmation of Tulsi Gabbard. Now, right off the bat, Tulsi Gabbard is a person whose affection for dictators has got her on a TSA watch list. Additionally, she has quoted verbatim Russian propaganda and lies as if they were facts. She is, CyberDoc, a Russian asset. There is no two ways about it. And she now is the head of national intelligence. It's insanity. Pete Hegseth stated that a return to the 1999 borders through negotiations is, quote, unrealistic, as is NATO membership. Just giving away the farm. Just saying to Putin, look, we know you're going to keep the land and we're going to help you keep it. That's what they're saying. And these comments are being repeated throughout the administration. There was the fawning, complimentary bullshit from Trump about what a great guy Putin is and how he loves the Russian people. And you cannot help but suffer a cognitive dissonance hearing this and knowing that the Russian war machine is daily committing war crimes and genocide here in Ukraine. That on the very day that they're saying these things, 6 ballistic missiles targeted Ukraine. Rubio is absolutely the worst. The worst. Quote, the dishonesty is that we somehow led people to believe that Ukraine would be able not just to defeat Russia, but destroy it, push it all the way back to what the world was like in 2020, 2014. He went on to both sides. So first, he says that it's dishonest to suggest that a Ukrainian victory is even possible. He then goes on to say that both sides in the negotiations need to give something up. In other words, after everything that you have suffered as the victim of this illegal genocidal war brought to you unprovoked by your Russian neighbors, now, Ukraine, you have to give up more. It's obscene. The United States seems quite intent on forfeiting its place of leadership in the world because the SecDef went on to say that European security would no longer be guaranteed by the United States. It is a betrayal of our deepest values and a return. So look, when Reagan was fighting communism, he talked about being a champion for Western values and Western democracies. Trump is just talking about serving his own unenlightened short-term self-interest. That's the world we're living in today. America is no longer led by any set of values other than the "what have you done for me lately" bullshit of the gangster mafiosa boss. So meanwhile, the transactional nature of Trump's self-interest, which dominates all he does, has led Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent to Ukraine to meet with Zelensky and begin the process of blackmailing Ukraine for its mineral wealth. Now, look, there's a lot of people who are trying to put a good spin on this, and I'm going to try to as well. Countries don't have friends, right? They have interests. The United States is concerned that China has a monopoly on rare earth minerals. If Ukraine can pony up $500 billion in rare earth minerals and get market value, right, get a fair trade on them, in exchange for a $500 billion credit with our armory, I mean, that right there could very well secure Ukraine's future. So it is not for us to make these decisions for Ukraine or to judge them. If this is what they need to get it done, then I say go for it. Maybe, Eliminator, it just might be that Ukraine does have the leverage here. So, well, Jeff, we don't know that they have, right? We don't know that Trump has really sold out yet. He's talking very flattering to Putin. But in point of fact, the only thing that's changed is that Ukraine now has a $500 billion credit for arms that no one can tell them what to do with because they're buying them. Right? So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Meanwhile, the EU foreign ministers are pissed. They are pissed. Germany, France, Poland, Britain, Italy, some of the Baltic states, UA and issued a statement. UA and EU must be part of negotiations. The EU is feeling betrayed. The EU foreign ministers insisted that they must be included in any negotiations. They reaffirmed support for a just and lasting peace that secures not only Ukraine and its interests, but indeed the long-term European security framework as well. Both Rubio and Hegseth and others in the administration seem to have said very clearly, they've showed their hand to the aggressor nation, saying that we know that Ukraine's not going to get all its territory back. We know that they're not going to be in NATO, and made that the starting point for negotiations. This is insanity of the worst sort. German Defense Minister Pistorius said the comments were regrettable, and the U.S. had made concessions to Moscow before talks even began. Numerous European leaders slammed the U.S. for making a deal without Ukraine and expressed concern that the U.S. might strong-arm Ukraine into a bad deal for both the EU and Ukraine, only putting off further conflict until Putin can rebuild his army. It looks like Neville Chamberlain-style appeasement. And the only thing that gets you is a delay in the violence and even worse violence down the road. Mark Rutte, the NATO chief, said Ukraine must be closely involved in every discussion of its own fate. And I couldn't agree more. John Healey, the UK Defense Secretary, said there can be no talk about Ukraine without Ukraine, which I think is a great bumper sticker. I might just finally get on the ball and get in the TikTok shop and make a bumper sticker that says there can be no talk about Ukraine without Ukraine. And he went on to say that Ukraine's voice must be at the heart of all talks. Agreed. Hey, Richard Hansen. The Estonia Defense Minister Hanno Pevkur said Europe must be a part of these negotiations. It is not a question at all. Europe is investing in Ukrainian defense, and Europe is rebuilding Ukraine with EU money. So we must have to be there. Hey, June. Former Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas said, and I really appreciated hearing this, any deal behind our backs will not work. Appeasement always fails. Any quick fix is a dirty deal. We've seen it before. It won't stop the killing. And so we are at a critical inflection point. Mark Charles makes the point that Schultz, given the way that the USA abandoned European security today in favor of its own interests, German Chancellor Scholz has called for an emergency declaration inside of Germany. Hey, Sergey. Pugga Mahone is saying that that's fake news. Is it fake news? Because I saw it too, but I didn't have a chance to read it. So I wasn't going to report on it because I did not have time to fact check it. Is that, Pugga Mahone, you're in Germany. That's not a thing. Interesting. Interesting. Somebody there said we need Biden back. Now look, the fact is that nothing any of these guys have said is anything new. These same, while maybe they said it more bluntly, these same kinds of difficult realities were hinted at by members of the Biden administration. So thanks, Pugga Mahone. I appreciate that. Bren Ryan says, what about carving up the resources between Russia and Trump? That is the big fear. It certainly appears that that's exactly what they are trying to do, isn't it? Trump has done Putin 5 big favors this week. First, he sanctioned the International Criminal Court, right? Then he disbanded the two task forces. One that was looking into Russian oligarch interference in our civil society and our elections, and the other that was seizing Russian oligarch property inside the United States. So that's 3 big favors. Then we have these comments from Trump about basically handing Ukraine to Putin, right? Pardon me. What did that do? Fucking ruble's at 89 to the dollar. The ruble is strong. Well, it's not strong. It's still down about, 22% from the start of the war. But it's recovering, right? It's not down 45% like it was before. The stock market inside Russia rebounded. Gazprom is up to $1.52 a share, up from a low of $1.31. Still a penny stock. Rosneft is up to $5.50 a share, up 11 points overnight. What about Lukoil? Lukoil, here it is up to $73 a share, almost 74. Up, looks like $1.30 overnight. So the stock market inside Russia there's a new buoyancy, a new hopefulness among the Russian people that these statements from Trump herald the beginning of the end of the war. And good news for Russia. They are celebrating in Russia, Jeff. You know, I dislike John Bolton intensely. But John Bolton said they are drinking vodka right out of the bottle in the Kremlin tonight. Peter says Trump threw 80 years of the alliance under the bus yesterday. He did. He absolutely did. And I would remind Americans who are happy about this that our prosperity in the United States is directly tied to our European cousins and their prosperity. Our prosperity depends on a prosperous and stable Europe. And without it, it's going to be a problem. Now, for his part, Pete Hegseth has walked back his own comments. He got so much pushback on these comments, everybody calling them a betrayal, which they are, that he had to say the words, "This is not a betrayal." And he had to walk back the idea that territorial concessions was already a done deal. And he had to walk back the idea that not being in NATO was already a done deal. And like any ass-kissing, boot-licking sycophant of a dictator, he put it all on the glorious Trump to work out. Whatever the leader of the free world says will be the way it goes, is basically what he said. It's not a direct quote, but it's awfully close. Now, we saw a couple interesting things come out of the news in terms of attacks by Ukraine on Russia. Ukraine used fiber optic drones to damage 3 Hyacinth B 125 millimeter towed artillery pieces that were heavily protected by an array of electronic and conventional warfare. So the fiber optic drones can't be jammed because they don't require a radio signal. They're hardwired back to the operator, right? And so those Hyacinths are giant guns. They're big pieces of metal, very hard to destroy. And the drones did damage them. The Ukrainian armed forces did not say that they are irreparable, but they did suggest that they would be out of action for the foreseeable future. In Novolipitsk, Russia's largest steel mill, about 400 kilometers from Ukraine, that produces 20% of Russia's steel output, was attacked last night. We're waiting for a damage assessment or satellite photos. North Korean troops may be back on the front line. Ukraine released drone footage of what appears to be North Korean troops back in the fight once again. A Russian Su-24 recon aircraft violated Polish airspace. The Russians insist it was merely a navigational error. Now, we also saw a video, and now how long NATO is going to put up with these violations of its airspace, these violations of its territory, these attacks of sabotage against critical infrastructure, is anybody's guess. But nobody is saying boo to the Russians about this reconnaissance spy plane that came into Polish territory. Now, what we did see from the Ukrainian armed forces was a little bit of video of an F-16 providing, for the first time that we're aware of, close ground support to troops. Now, it appears as though the very difficult job of integrating a new weapons platform, the F-16, into the combined arms maneuvers of the Ukrainian armed forces is well underway. Now, that's real progress for the Ukrainians, who in the first 2 weeks they had the F-16s very likely shot one of them down themselves. So it's good to see the F-16s out there and new capabilities being explored. Finally, in Almaty, that's not how you say it, I know, in Kazakhstan, there was an MMA fight between a Russian and a Kazakh guy. And you know, the Kazakhs, they want to get away from Russia. And they needle the Russians all the time. Well, at this MMA fight, they needled the Russians by not playing the national anthem when the Russian came into the ring. Dead silence in the stadium when the Russian came in. Cheers and the Kazakh national anthem when the Kazakh guy came in. And so it's certainly nice to see the Russians being needled by a people who they regularly insult and mistreat. Okay, I want to thank the moderators. I want to thank Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces. I want to thank Lars, who has the Discord server. And I want to thank the sponsor of tonight's live, Brendan Hoy. Brendan, wherever you are, thank you very much. It's really a big help. Again, Tomorrow night, Beatricella is our sponsor, and I have no other sponsors for the rest of February. If you'd like to get in on the action, I would certainly appreciate it, and the PayPal is in the description. Okay, questions, comments, points of observation. What do we got? Why is Kyiv not hitting Moscow? Sergey, to the best of my knowledge, Ukraine really doesn't have the long-range weapons necessary to hit Moscow. Now, I know there's some 700-kilometer drones and stuff, yada, yada. But also remember, Ukraine doesn't commit war crimes. Ukraine is targeting, right? They've got a very limited inventory right now of weapons. They do not have weapons to waste on, say, a hit on the Kremlin, which isn't going to do any good, but would be symbolic, right? I agree. You look at the targets that they're choosing. Those targets are very clearly related to Russia's ability to prosecute the war. And they're not a war crime. They're legitimate military targets. And I think that's why Kyiv is not hitting Moscow. EU needs to wake up and step up big time. Moscow and St. Petersburg need to feel the war big time. You're not wrong, June. Hey, Mike. Thanks, Bren Ryan. Trump knowing that World War III is coming, he won't let anyone else start it. That's funny. No talks about Ukraine without Ukraine. Damn Skippy. Charles Jones, what do I think about this deal? I am heartbroken that the United States is no longer a leader in the world and instead a grubby little real estate agent is sticking his fingers into these pies. It's disgusting. However, if it gets the job done for Ukraine and Ukraine believes it's in their best interest, I will not second guess that. Moscow is the only place with air defense. No, there's Russian air defense everywhere. It's not designed for drones, right? The Russians thought that they would be fighting the USA and Europe. Their air defense is designed for big-ass missiles, the kind that we have. It's not designed for drones. And so not only is it a problem because they're running out of them, because the Ukrainians keep blowing them up on the front line, but they are not really designed for the task at hand. And Russia, thus far, has been unable to architect an alternative solution. Lucas asks, how does Trump's unsurprising realignment with Putin affect the war effort? That is yet to be seen. I am cautiously optimistic that this rare earth mineral deal might just be the thing Ukraine needs most right now. Can Ukraine carry on this war without U.S.? Russia is vulnerable. Well, I don't know if you mean U.S. or us, Anthony. I don't know exactly what that question is. But look, I know that the Ukrainians are going to continue to fight regardless of what happens. I had guys when I had the privilege of visiting the Donbass, and I spoke to members of the Edelweiss group there. They all said the same thing. If they have to fight with sticks and stones and slingshots, they will. Anthony, that sums it up right there. The deal has to be a Ukrainian decision. I agree. So, Bobby, is that where that $400 million deal came from? I saw a little something about it, or somebody mentioned it. $400 million contract to provide armored cars for the State Department. Ugh. Oron, I apologize. I don't know what's happening in Georgia. I have really been under the weather this past week, and this is my only my second live this week. Actually, you can probably hear it. So I'll try to do a Georgia update tomorrow. There is a manpower shortage in Ukraine. There's no doubt about it. Mr. SOB, I believe that right now Russia is in such a delicate position, economically, militarily, socially, that even without U.S. support. Now remember, if this rare earth deal goes through, which it appears it's going to, Ukraine suddenly has a $500 billion credit with the United States for weapons. I mean, all up, all of the investment in Ukraine from both Europe and the United States doesn't total half of $500 billion. So $500 billion could very well win the war, yes. Ukraine gives up NATO and Putin gives up territory. That's the Trump deal. I don't know that to be true. What territory is Russia supposed to give up? Mike, the live sponsorship is $50. And the link is in the bio. Thanks very much for your interest. I sure appreciate it. Bren Ryan, there is no missing $100 billion. This is nonsense. I did feel that it was a little disingenuous of Zelensky to say that. He knows better. He knows that a lot of that money, tens of billions of dollars of it, went back into the American economy to build weapons to replace the ones we sent here. But it's included in that package, right? Money doesn't go to Ukraine, it goes to American defense contractors. He knows that. Tens of billions of dollars in that package went to foreign partners for the training of F-16 pilots in other countries, for the training of just soldiery on the ground in other countries. So he knows very well that he was never going to get $177 billion. However, it is worth pointing out that he claims he only got $76 billion. And according to the General Budget Office, and there's also a website called Ukraine Oversight where you can see every penny. According to our accounting, he got $86 billion, 86.6, almost 87. So an $11 billion difference in our understanding of what was delivered is not just a rounding error. It's not something to be ignored, but it is nowhere near $100 billion missing. That's nonsense. Yeah, Stock Cube, we're going to learn that lesson the hard way again, it looks like. You know, when the next Great Depression comes and Trump has bankrupted the American people once again, maybe we will learn our lesson and we'll get a new deal. Well, don't worry about me, Mike. I'm okay. I mean, I'm okay. Are the rare earth minerals mostly in occupied territory? What's in the occupied territory for sure is one of the world's largest lithium deposits, which we know is high on Musk's radar. And which now, bear in mind, we just found a big lithium deposit in the United States that we are exploiting. I want to say it's no, that's the uranium. The uranium's in Wyoming. I think it's in California. I want to say it's in California. So, Bren Ryan, you can see all of the accounting on the Ukraine oversight page of the State Department's website. And I assure you, there is no missing $100 billion. You're not wrong, Anthony. Was it in Arkansas, Richard? That doesn't sound, well, it could be. Could be. I don't know. What about the 350 billion Trump mouths about? That's not a real number. Like, we know that's not a real number. That's just bullshit. That's just Trump and his bullshit. Like when he says there's millions of people dead. There's lots of people dead. This is a real tragedy. It is not millions. It is not. It's likely not 1 million yet, though we are on our way there. Jax, I don't know what you mean by that. I don't believe that to be true. Alexander, I'm an American, and I'm sorry about the Americans. John King is saying North Carolina. Richard Chapman is saying lithium in Arkansas. It's somewhere. I know it's under a lake or something, or a dried lake bed. That sounds more like Arkansas than North Carolina. Trump said the 350 billion was his opinion. Oh my God. Listen to Springer 02 there. Then leave America. Love it or leave it. I fucking did. I'm in Ukraine. You know why? Because Ukraine is fighting for its freedom while America is going down without so much as throwing a punch against this copper-toned con man cunt. Fuck you, Springer. I did leave. I'm where the people are actually fighting for democracy and freedom. Give me a break. So the Munich conference is underway. The first early bird meetings and roundtables were today. Thanks, Michael. Okay, clearly we have a disagreement about where the lithium is. Anyway, Eliminator, regarding the Munich conference. Now, I don't want to get your hopes up, but I did ask Dr. K from Charistocracy if she would come on the live after Munich and talk about what she had learned there. So I am hoping to have a special live stream with Dr. K, but that is not a definite yet. I probably shouldn't have said anything. But I do want to start getting people interested in that, because I think we will have a good conversation if she can find the time, right? She's a very busy person. It's raining in Phoenix. Well, there you go. Trump is president again, and hell has frozen over. Yeah, Dr. K is a very insightful political scientist, and it would be great to have her on. Funny Nightshade. That's right. Huh. Google says lithium deposits recently found in Nevada, California, and Arkansas. Thank you, Roy. And it did snow in Florida. You're right. So hell did freeze over. Nice, Ethan. Nice. That's a good line. Thanks, Mike. Do you think Putin will accept to give up the 4 regions he's occupying? No. No, he will not. U.S. VIP plane landed in Moscow not too long ago. Yeah, it's owned by... The plane that landed in Moscow is owned by, what's his name? Wyckoff. He's Trump's special envoy to the Middle East. And I don't know who was on the plane. But clearly the tone out of Moscow turned right around. Right now, everybody's talking about peace, meeting with Trump, yada, yada. Hello, Latvia. Bren Ryan, don't worry about praising me. Praise the guys on the front line that do miracles every day. So Nanopam is saying in the U.S. they're calling for a general strike. How socialist of everybody. Good. Do it. Trump negotiates as if USA had a $2 trillion economy. That's funny, dude. Yeah, Nightshade. Good night. I'm feeling it too, man. I've really been unwell this week. We got 10 minutes, and there's still some good questions here. What terms for peace would be acceptable? I have said from the start of this conflict that only Ukraine can dictate the terms of Russian surrender. They are the invaded. They are the victims of this illegal genocidal war. Oh, was it Vogel? It was Vogel, wasn't it? We got Vogel back. That's who was on the plane. Right. Why is socialism bad? Socialism isn't bad, in my opinion. I'm a socialist, very much so. I'm not a Democrat. And I have a lot of problems with the Democrats. Joe Biden was not my guy. And given the state of the union, I think we have to start thinking that the Democrats are complicit in this takeover of the government. They're not doing a goddamn thing to stop it. And now Trump is ignoring court orders. He's ignoring the judiciary. He's strong-arming them into changing their opinions. Or he's firing or impeaching them. I mean, that's right out of the dictator playbook. Well, Bobby, get out on the beach. Thank you, Ken. Roy Daniels, that's got a name. It's called exceeding the limits of cognitive abilities. It's a shock doctrine. I think that's what they call it. A shock doctrine. You create complete and utter chaos so that nobody knows what the fuck they're supposed to fight against, because there's so many things to fight against. Right, Ethelred, how can one person stop a mob? It's ridiculous. Trump is being a dictator. He does have a green light. 72 million Americans gave him the green light to do his fucking worst. And as they get deported, the very people who voted for him, as they get deported, as they see their rights chipped away, as they see their crops rot in the fields for want of buyers, I don't know that they won't just blame everybody else instead of Trump, who is the person behind it. When I watch the way that these brainwashed Russians send videos to Putin begging him to fix the very situation he created, I wonder if there's any hope for these lame brain cult members at all. That's just it, Kent. They don't see the madness. Wait until Medicaid is destroyed. Yeah, Medicare and Medicaid. Social Security is next. Oh, Jeff, I'm sure China's looking on and saying, we backed the right horse, right? We backed Putin in this war. And Putin has just won his greatest victory, the subversion of the U.S. federal system. I'm sure that's what they're saying in China. Crazy days. Right, Uncle Christopher says farmers are already worried about losing their farms because Trump has frozen funding. Right, now that's not just American farm subsidies, Uncle Christopher, but he stopped all USAID. Now, the Trumpists all say, USAID is just bullshit. We just send all this food to other countries where they're too stupid to feed themselves, right? We're just saving starving people. It's dumb. It's a waste of our taxpayer dollars. As if saving starving people wasn't reason enough. But forget about that. Let's look at it from the Trump self-interest perspective. Where do we buy all that food? You think we're buying it from African farmers? No. We buy it from American farmers. Why? To ensure the food supply security for the United States while keeping prices in the market stable. Those benefits all go away when you shut down USAID. Everything Trump is doing is inflationary. Everybody voted for him so that he would stop inflation. Everything he is doing is driving inflation. Tariffs, inflation all over the place. Insanity. Complete insanity. Oh, tariffs on the family farm. Where does China get? China buys 70% of the world's soybeans, right? They buy a lot of them, I think 8% from the United States. No soybean contracts for March. China stopped buying U.S. soybeans. They're going to wait for the Brazilian harvest to come in. I don't know if you guys can hear that. That's air defense is active. We are tired of spending money overseas. Where? You know, the stupidity of that comment. Tell me you never took an economics class without telling me you never took an economics class. All of what... Oh, shit. Here, you can hear a drone. I can hear it right now. Listen. Hear that? Like a 2-cycle motorcycle engine? That's what that is. That's in the neighborhood. All right, let's get away from these windows. All right, kids. This is real. This is very fucking real here. Right now, there are Ukrainian mothers all over this city grabbing their children and throwing them into the tub with blankets and pillows because they're going to spend the night in the tub now because that's the safest place to be in the apartment. So, as we watch, I got to get to cover. So as we watch the sunset of American influence in the world, because the crybabies on the right are tired of spending money overseas, not realizing that that's what puts the money in their fucking pockets. The reality of the Trump people is they're all too stupid to understand that they have been cheated by an idiot, by a moron. That's the world we're living in. And they are cheering the downfall of America to thunderous applause and YMCA, which you can't say is a gay anthem anymore, right? The guy who wrote it will sue you. So stupid. No worries, Mike. Thank you very much. So again, big thanks to Brendan Hoy for his generous support and live sponsorship. Thanks to everybody that supports this channel. Guys, if you do not have a free Patreon account, I encourage you to get a free Patreon account and follow me on Patreon too, where I publish behind the scenes videos. I publish the news we are waking up to. I will not get this live posted until tomorrow because I have to go to bed because it's late. All right. I will see everybody tomorrow. Thanks so much. Make it a great day. Pills and thrills. Dude, do you have any glasses? You would look like Trotsky. It's funny you say that because I mean, politically, I say I'm socialist, right? But really, I'm a post-Belgian Trotskyite. So after Trotsky was already in exile and he changed his mind about communism and the revolution, and he wrote some other stuff while he was in Belgium. I'm more of a post-Belgian Trotskyite myself. But I do not look like Trotsky. Trotsky was a little guy. I'm a big motherfucker. All right, anyway, good night, guys.